from the time I was a young child, my mom told me that I never really liked to play with dolls, but when she and my dad had my little brother, when I was 6, I fell in love with him. I loved his toes. I loved the way he smelled. My mom even said I would hold him up after she had fed him and look into his face, and he would have spit up that would fall through the air into my mouth, and I would just laugh it off. I love babies. I love kids. And so from the time I was young, I always wanted to be married and have a family. I grew up in a Christian home and was heavily involved in our home church. Saw lots of young married couples with children, and that just continued to be reaffirmed that that was what I wanted. And so as I was entering into high school and college, and then even after, during my career days as a teacher, that was really a guiding principle. And I was the kind of girl that if a guy looked at me a certain way, that I would think, oh, he likes me, and I would quickly pair my first name with his last name. I would analyze the look, I would analyze the motion or the interaction with the guy, and quickly project our future together. And so as that went on over time, and the guys that I hoped would work out didn't, or those relationships just weren't viable, I began to grow discouraged. So I would be hopeful and then discouraged, and hopeful and then discouraged as the relationships didn't work out. And I sought to control the way that my goal could be accomplished by physically being quite active, mentally studying hard, being involved more and more in our church, because I thought that that was how I would be the person that the guy would want, and I would be the person that God would want. And I even would say, looking back now, although I wouldn't have used these words at the time, that when you use a person to get what you want, that's manipulation. And I was even using Jesus to get what I wanted. So the Lord began a process of exposing that to me in a very real way. I wound up going over to England to a Bible school and conference center where I was a volunteer. And during that time I met a guy from France who was not a Christian, and he and I spent a lot of time together. And then one night we had the opportunity to take our relationship to the next level. And I clearly remember the Lord saying, in a gentlemanly, loving, caring, protective way, Sarah, you do not want to go down this path. And I thought to myself, I'm 25 now, I do, and I can handle this. And it's not that big of a deal. It's small, I can manage it. If I get into trouble, I can get out. And that reminds me of Eve in the garden with a piece of fruit in her hand, where she thinks, I can manage this, I can handle it, I can hold it in my hand. But the harsh reality is that's just an illusion. And I would wake up after that night for the next couple of months every morning feeling like I had chains over me of I'm doing that, and oh, I chose this, and I hate this reality that I've chosen. I hate it. I was withdrawing and isolating from my good, healthy relationships, and I felt like I was doing things that I didn't want to do, but now I was too stuck, I felt. And it's like if you make one decision, then that one decision becomes 2 bad decisions, and then those 2 bad decisions become 4, and it's just as exponentially bigger than what I had originally thought it was going to be. And so now I'm stuck in this relationship that I feel like I can't get out of. And I don't feel honored, I don't feel cared for or known. What looked so promising was just an illusion. And so after a few months of feeling so in bondage and unable to get out, I cried out to the Lord and said, Lord, I am asking you to free me from this relationship that I have chosen. You would be perfectly just to leave me in the consequence of these decisions that I have made for myself. But I am asking you to set me free from this relationship. by your mercy. And the next day, this voluntary staff guy, for reasons I don't have time to share right now, was not able to stay any longer. Reasons that I wish I had more time to share in detail with you, how the Lord did that. But as a result of that, my heart toward the Lord said this, Lord, I don't ever want to leave you again, because when you say no to God who is light, then you're in darkness. And when you say no to God who is truth, then you're in lies. And when you say no to God who is true life, then you're in such a dark and empty place. So I just wanted to be with the Lord from that point on. I had known so much about him intellectually, but I had never seen him personally caring for me in such a way. So at that point, after this guy left Cape and Ray Hall, where I had been volunteering, I went to lunch and I sat across the table from another voluntary staff guy. His name was Eric. And he and I became friends in a healthy, God-honoring way. We had a group of incredibly encouraging and fun Christians that we hung out with in a group together. And we were very good friends in a healthy way. As our terms as volunteers were ending, I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm ever going to see Eric again. And that thought would have paralyzed me in the past. But I felt like I was in a different place with Jesus to say, I don't know what the future holds, but I know Eric is seeking the Lord. And I would rather have you, God, in Eric's future, even if it means that I am not. So it was at that point that I realized I do love Eric with a godly love, because it doesn't involve me. It just involves him with the Lord. As it were, Eric and I struck up a phone conversation after he went back to Canada and I was back in South Carolina. And again, in details that I would love to share, but I don't have time to, the Lord worked in Eric's life. He flew down and proposed, and when he proposed, we were on a dock in Beaufort, and he's down on one knee, and I'm so not even expecting what's about to happen. But as he says, I'm asking you to marry me. It was a moment for me with Jesus, and it was as though, if you can remember, of course you can because you're a filmy guy, the old, before digital cameras, the film cameras, each individual frame was like a picture of each guy that I had hoped would work out but didn't. And at the time I had said, like, God, have you forgotten me? Or what are you thinking? Like, why isn't this guy working out? Or why isn't this guy working out? Now it was like God was saying, do you see? Do you see? Do you see? Do you see now why all these things didn't work out? Because I had Eric for you. And Eric is not perfect, but he is God's choice for me. And so, yeah, I would just want to encourage girls that even though sometimes God's heart might look hard and uncaring and unfeeling, he has a plan that is so much bigger than us. And I would want to encourage the girls to begin to depend and surrender upon Jesus right now while they're single, and allow him to work out his plan for their life. Yeah, Eric and I wake up in the morning looking at each other sometimes with tears in our eyes, thinking we do not deserve to be here, because his choices and my choices would have led us on other ends of the earth and far away from one another. But because of God and what he's done in our life, we give him great thanks. So yeah, I celebrate the Lord today, and just want to encourage the girls in their relationship with him.